LeBron James, the king, the chosen one, four-time NBA champion, billionaire entrepreneur, global icon. For 2 decades, he's dominated not just basketball, but the culture surrounding it. From Akron, Ohio, to the bright lights of Los Angeles, LeBron has built an empire on the court and a brand beyond it. But with greatness comes scrutiny. Behind the triple-doubles, signature sneakers, and philanthropic headlines. There's another story, one less polished, one the mainstream media often glances over. This is the dark past of LeBron James. 5 controversies that challenge the myth of the perfect player and show us that even kings have shadows. The decision, LeBron's moment of glory or his greatest mistake, it was supposed to be a celebration. In 2010, LeBron James was at the peak of his career, a 25-year-old MVP, an NBA superstar, and the pride of his hometown Cleveland. He had already achieved so much: a season MVP award, countless all-star selections, and a loyal fan base that adored him. LeBron's talent on the court was unparalleled, his future seemingly limitless. But as he entered the final year of his contract with the Cleveland Cavaliers, the inevitable question loomed. Where would LeBron go next? Rather than quietly negotiate with teams or sign a contract behind closed doors, LeBron decided to make his decision a spectacle. ESPN, the network synonymous with sports, was given exclusive access to broadcast the event. The network devoted an entire hour to it, hyping the moment as one of the most monumental in basketball history. They called it the decision. The world was watching. The air was electric. Fans, media, and even players across the league anxiously awaited LeBron's announcement. What followed, however, wasn't the crowning achievement of a basketball god, but a monumental PR disaster that forever altered LeBron's legacy. "I'm going to take my talents to South Beach," LeBron said, his words echoing through homes, bars, and arenas. In that instant, the basketball world stood still. The Miami Heat, a team with already established stars in Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, had just secured the biggest prize in free agency. LeBron James was joining them, not as the underdog, not as the small-town hero fighting for recognition, but as the centerpiece of a super team. The fallout was swift and intense. For Cleveland fans, it felt like a slap in the face. For 7 seasons, LeBron had been the franchise, carrying the Cavs on his back year after year. But now the player they had poured their hearts into, the player they had believed would bring them their first NBA title, was leaving. And worse, he was leaving for a team that had already been built up with all-stars, seemingly turning his back on the city that had given him everything. LeBron James wasn't just a basketball player in Cleveland. He was the city's lifeblood. The Cavaliers had never won an NBA title, and for the people of Cleveland, LeBron represented the dream of delivering that elusive championship. His departure wasn't just a personal decision. It felt like a betrayal to an entire community that had invested so much emotionally and financially in his success. As soon as the news broke, the reaction was visceral. Clevelanders reacted with anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. Fans who had worn LeBron jerseys for years burned them in the streets, publicly denouncing the man they once saw as their hero. Bars that had celebrated his every triumph now felt like ghost towns. The man who was once the face of the Cavaliers was now persona non grata. But it wasn't just the fans who were hurt. Cavaliers owner Dan Gilbert penned an open letter that was as scathing as it was emotional. In it, he called LeBron's move a cowardly betrayal, lashing out at the player who had so often claimed his loyalty to Cleveland. Gilbert vowed that the city would win a championship before LeBron ever did, a bold statement that would go down in history as both a defiant challenge and an incredibly painful promise. Spoiler alert, that promise didn't come true in the immediate years that followed, leaving Cleveland to sit in the shadow of its broken dreams while LeBron flourished in Miami. For many, the real issue wasn't LeBron's decision to leave. After all, it was his right to do so. The issue was how he handled it. The spectacle of the decision wasn't just a broadcast event. It was a reminder of LeBron's growing ego and thirst for media control. While some fans were caught up in the hype, many saw the way LeBron turned his free agency into an extravagant, televised event as a demonstration of self-importance. LeBron's show of confidence, even arrogance, reached its peak during the event, as he, Wade, and Bosch sat side by side in Miami, promising multiple championships. The infamous quote from LeBron, "Not one, not two, not three," and so on, struck a chord with fans and critics alike. For the first time, the king had publicly spoken with the arrogance of a man who believed his legacy was already sealed. Instead of a humble acknowledgement of the hard work that lay ahead, it felt like LeBron was declaring his greatness before ever stepping on the court for a single game in Miami. This wasn't just a free agent move. It wasn't about basketball. It became a cultural moment, one where LeBron was no longer the humble underdog from Akron, but a man who saw himself as a god of basketball above all others. His decision not only shifted the balance of power in the NBA, but also turned him into a villain in the eyes of many. Critics pounced on the spectacle. It wasn't just that LeBron had left Cleveland. It was the public way in which he did it, the way he turned his exit into a televised circus, overshadowing the real story. His move was about joining forces with other superstars to chase championships. This was the beginning of the super team era in the NBA, and LeBron's decision would be the benchmark by which future players would measure their own free agent decisions. For the first time, the public saw a side of LeBron that they hadn't expected. Not just the hard-working, humble Akron kid who overcame the odds, but a savvy businessman and media mogul who understood the power of perception. While many admired LeBron for his athleticism, his leadership, and his work ethic, the decision revealed another side to him. A man who had mastered the art of shaping his public narrative, even if it wasn't always in the most favorable light. Despite the immediate backlash, LeBron's time in Miami did in fact solidify his place as one of the greatest players in NBA history. He went on to win 2 championships with the Heat, including back-to-back MVPs in 2012 and 2013, proving that he could thrive on a team stacked with talent. His decision to leave Cleveland and join the Heat set off a dynasty that would dominate the NBA for years to come. However, the damage to his image was undeniable. Even as LeBron won championships and accolades in Miami, the shadow of the decision followed him. LeBron was no longer the underdog hero who rose from poverty to greatness. Instead, he was seen by many as a player who had taken the easy route, teaming up with other stars to build a dynasty rather than forging his own path to glory. The criticism of his character and the spectacle of his departure would remain an albatross around his neck. In 2014, when LeBron made the decision to return to Cleveland, it was clear he was trying to redeem himself in the eyes of his hometown fans. His return was met with an outpouring of support, and when he finally delivered a championship to Cleveland in 2016, it was one of the most emotional moments in NBA history. But the scars from the decision never fully healed. For LeBron, the road to redemption would be long and filled with challenges. The narrative of the villain, the arrogant superstar who left his city in the dust, would take years to change. But over time, through hard work, public humility, and a focus on winning for his hometown, LeBron began to shift the perception of his legacy. Now, in hindsight, the decision remains one of the most controversial moments in sports history, not just because of what it meant for LeBron James, but because of what it meant for the future of the NBA. It set a precedent for free agent decisions, media manipulation, and the creation of super teams. But it also revealed the human side of LeBron, the side that struggles with perception, ego, and the weight of a city's hopes. In the end, LeBron James's legacy will be defined not just by the rings he's won or the records he's broken, but by the way he overcame adversity, both on and off the court. And while the decision might have been a moment of hubris, it was also the beginning of a new chapter in LeBron's story, one that continues to unfold with every new triumph and every setback. The NBA's China controversy, LeBron's silence, and the fallout. In October 2019, the NBA found itself embroiled in a geopolitical firestorm that had nothing to do with basketball. It all started when Daryl Morey, the general manager of the Houston Rockets, posted a simple tweet of support for the pro-democracy protests in Hong Kong. The message was short, but its implications were massive. Morey expressed solidarity with Hong Kong citizens in their struggle against China's authoritarian crackdown, a situation that had been escalating for months. The fallout was immediate and intense. Chinese state-run broadcasters and major media outlets who had become essential partners to the NBA in recent years, quickly pulled coverage of NBA games. Some of China's biggest sponsors, including multinational corporations with significant stakes in the Chinese market, severed ties with the league. The economic impact was swift, as NBA games became blacked out in the world's most populous country, a market that had become an essential revenue stream for the league. The NBA, in a bid to calm the situation, walked a fine line between supporting Maury's right to free speech and protecting its financial interests in China. NBA Commissioner Adam Silver voiced his support for Maury's right to express his views, but the league's efforts to navigate the situation with diplomacy were met with mounting pressure from all sides. The real turning point, however, came when LeBron James, the NBA's most visible and influential player, waded into the debate. Instead of voicing support for Daryl Morey's right to speak freely, as many had hoped, LeBron James chose a very different route. LeBron, who had built a reputation as one of the most outspoken and principled athletes in the world on issues of social justice, criticized Morey for his tweet. "I think he wasn't educated on the situation," LeBron said at a press conference, referring to Morey's expression of solidarity with Hong Kong protesters. For many, LeBron's words were a betrayal. Morey had simply expressed his opinion, but LeBron chose to prioritize his financial relationship with China over speaking out on behalf of human rights. Critics, including many of his own fans, were quick to call LeBron a hypocrite, accusing him of abandoning his activism for the sake of maintaining his lucrative business ties in China. LeBron James had long been the face of activism in sports, an athlete who used his platform to speak out against police brutality, racial inequality, and social injustices in the United States. He had openly campaigned for Trayvon Martin, taken a knee during the national anthem to protest systemic racism, and funded educational programs for underserved youth in his hometown of Akron, Ohio. LeBron's activism had been lauded by many as groundbreaking, with him using his massive influence to challenge the status quo and fight for the voiceless. But now, when the stakes were higher, when it involved one of the world's most authoritarian regimes, a country with a long history of human rights abuses, LeBron chose to deflect, downplay, and distance himself from the issue. Instead of defending the protesters in Hong Kong, or at least calling for a peaceful resolution, he voiced his concern over Morey's lack of education on the issue. This was not just a public relations mistake. It was a critical moment that exposed the cracks in LeBron's carefully curated image as a principled leader. The perception was that LeBron was willing to speak truth to power when it served his interests, but was willing to turn a blind eye to the realities of authoritarianism and human rights violations when the situation involved one of his largest business partners. In China, LeBron had become an idol, with his brand of Nike sneakers selling in the billions. The NBA had invested millions of dollars into cultivating its brand in China, and LeBron, with his global appeal, was at the center of that push. But that didn't excuse the fact that, by defending China's stance and criticizing Morey, LeBron was effectively turning a blind eye to the very principles he had so fiercely championed when it came to domestic issues in the United States. The optics were bad, and the irony was not lost on those who had followed LeBron's career. LeBron's comments quickly ignited a firestorm, not just in the United States, but in Hong Kong as well. Pro-democracy activists, who had been fighting against the Chinese government's attempts to erode their freedoms, were outraged by LeBron's words. Many took to social media to voice their anger, accusing LeBron of selling out for financial gain. Protests erupted in Hong Kong, with demonstrators burning LeBron James jerseys in the streets. Signs were held up bearing messages such as, "LeBron James is a money-hungry coward," and "Where is your support for Hong Kong?" The protesters, who had spent months in the streets fighting for their right to democracy, saw LeBron's comments as an act of capitulation to a regime that had brutally suppressed dissent. To them, LeBron had thrown their struggle under the bus in exchange for maintaining his own brand's lucrative position in China. It was a bitter pill to swallow, especially for those who had once admired LeBron's social justice efforts. In the United States, the criticism was also sharp and unrelenting. LeBron's standing as an activist, a leader in the fight for racial justice and equality, was put into question. Many saw his silence on China's human rights abuses as a glaring contradiction to his past advocacy. How could LeBron speak out against racial injustice in the U.S., but remain silent, or worse, defend a country with such a notorious record of oppression? The backlash was swift and unforgiving. LeBron, who had been lauded as one of the most socially conscious athletes in history, suddenly found himself at the center of a global debate about free speech, corporate interests, and the morality of doing business in a repressive regime. Many believe that LeBron's comments revealed the limits of his activism. As much as he claimed to fight for justice, it seemed he was willing to compromise his principles when the financial stakes were high enough. The scandal raised uncomfortable questions about the intersection of business and activism. How could LeBron, a man who had fought so hard for the rights of Black Americans and used his platform to address systemic issues, reconcile that image with his defense of a regime known for its human rights violations? Was LeBron truly an advocate for justice, or was he simply a man who understood how to use his image for personal gain? Ultimately, LeBron's decision to publicly back China, to prioritize his brand's financial interests over standing with the protesters in Hong Kong, left a stain on his legacy. While he would go on to continue his charitable work and his vocal support for social justice movements in the United States, the controversy surrounding his comments about Hong Kong would never fully disappear. It was a moment that highlighted the inherent contradictions in LeBron's brand of activism. A man who championed social justice when it aligned with his personal goals, but chose silence when confronted with a geopolitical issue that threatened his business empire. LeBron's comments and the fallout from the NBA's broader response also shed light on the uncomfortable relationship between sports leagues, big business, and global politics. The NBA, which had worked tirelessly to build its brand in China, found itself caught between competing interests, its commitment to free speech and its financial interests in the Chinese market. The league had to navigate these waters carefully, and it was clear that its players, particularly its most high-profile stars like LeBron, were key players in that delicate balancing act. For many, this controversy was not just about LeBron James. It was about the larger issue of corporate greed, the manipulation of media narratives, and the way Western businesses were willing to turn a blind eye to human rights abuses in order to access China's vast consumer market. LeBron, as the face of the NBA, was simply a reflection of a larger problem: the growing influence of China in global business and the lengths to which Western corporations and celebrities would go to protect their profits. In the end, the LeBron-China controversy raised complex questions about the role of athletes and celebrities in the political landscape, especially when financial interests come into play. While LeBron would continue to be a prominent figure in social justice causes in the U.S., his comments about Hong Kong would forever remain a blemish on his record, one that would force fans and critics alike to reconsider the true depth of his activism. The biogenesis scandal, LeBron James and the performance-enhancing rumors. LeBron James has never failed a drug test. Let's be clear about that. Throughout his illustrious career, LeBron has passed every drug screening administered by the NBA, and there is no concrete evidence to suggest he has ever used performance-enhancing drugs, PEDs. However, despite the lack of proof, rumors and whispers have persisted over the years, particularly around the time of the biogenesis scandal, a controversy that rocked the world of professional sports and continues to cast a shadow on some athletes' legacies. The biogenesis scandal centered on a Miami-based clinic, Biogenesis of America, which supplied illegal performance-enhancing drugs to a variety of high-profile athletes, including Major League Baseball, MLB stars like Alex Rodriguez, Ryan Braun, and others. The clinic's founder, Tony Bosch, operated in a gray area of the sports world, providing PEDs to clients who sought to enhance their physical performance without getting caught by standard drug testing methods. In 2013, Bosch was convicted for his role in the operation, and he cooperated with federal investigators, providing them with crucial information about the athletes involved. Many of these athletes were suspended, including Alex Rodriguez, whose 162-game ban for his involvement in the scandal was one of the most high-profile suspensions in sports history. While some of these athletes faced public scrutiny and punishment, the biogenesis scandal revealed just how deep the issue of performance-enhancing drugs had permeated the world of sports. So what does this have to do with LeBron James? In 2013, Amidst the fallout of the biogenesis scandal, a number of anonymous sources and fringe reports began to surface, suggesting that LeBron's name, or at least those close to him, might have some connection to the clinic. These rumors were never substantiated, and no documents ever confirmed that LeBron himself was involved with biogenesis or had ever used PEDs. But that didn't stop the whispers from growing. In fact, the speculation around LeBron's potential connection to biogenesis became a topic of conversation, particularly because of the way LeBron's physical dominance seemed to defy the natural laws of aging and injury. Standing at 6 feet 9 inches and weighing 250 pounds, LeBron James has been a physical marvel throughout his career. His combination of size, strength, and agility, moving like a guard despite his massive frame, has been nothing short of extraordinary. He is one of the few athletes in any sport who has been able to maintain an elite level of play into his late 30s, with his prime seemingly lasting longer than that of most players. For many, this physical excellence seemed almost otherworldly, leading some in the sports world to question, how could someone sustain such a level of play for so long without significant injury? For skeptics, the answer to that question remained unclear, and the rumors about LeBron's potential connection to biogenesis seemed to grow louder. The situation took an interesting turn when Alex Rodriguez, a major figure in the biogenesis scandal, tweeted something in 2013 that many believed was a veiled shot at LeBron. After Rodriguez was suspended for his involvement in the PED scandal, he posted a cryptic message on Twitter that read, "Interesting how some guys avoid the headlines." To many, this tweet was seen as a subtle jab at LeBron, especially considering that LeBron trained with some of the same Miami-based professionals who were connected to biogenesis. The tweet seemed to imply that LeBron had managed to stay out of the spotlight despite his ties to the same circles that had gotten Rodriguez and other athletes into trouble. It was a vague statement, but for those already suspicious of LeBron's physicality and his connection to the scandal, it added fuel to the fire. It's important to note, however, that there was never any direct evidence linking LeBron to biogenesis or to PEDs. Rodriguez's tweet, while suspicious, was nothing more than an indirect comment. Still, in the world of professional sports, where rumors often spread like wildfire, this kind of cryptic message can raise more questions than it answers. Another key point of speculation came from the NBA's drug testing policies. Prior to 2015, the NBA did not test for human growth hormone, HGH, a substance often used by athletes to improve muscle mass, recovery, and endurance. HGH is one of the most difficult substances to detect through conventional drug testing, and many athletes have used it to enhance their performance without facing punishment. Given LeBron's incredible durability and athleticism, some fans and analysts couldn't help but wonder, what if he had access to HGH before it was added to the NBA's testing protocol? LeBron was already in the prime of his career by 2015, and his level of play had only grown more impressive as he entered his 30s. By that point, the NBA had enacted testing for HGH, but LeBron had been dominating the league for over a decade, and some questioned whether he had been able to avoid scrutiny during that time. While there is absolutely no proof to support these claims, the timing of the NBA's decision to implement HGH testing and the ongoing questions about LeBron's physicality led some to believe that the lack of early testing may have helped protect him from detection. To this day, the rumors surrounding LeBron's possible connection to biogenesis and the use of performance-enhancing drugs remain just that, rumors. There has been no hard evidence to back up these allegations, and LeBron has never tested positive for any banned substances throughout his career. His commitment to training, his extraordinary physical attributes, and his ability to stay in peak condition well into his 30s are all a testament to his dedication to the game and his body. However, the shadow of suspicion has never fully cleared. In the eyes of skeptics, the lingering questions about LeBron's physicality, combined with the timing of the biogenesis scandal and the cryptic comments made by others, will always cast a shadow over his legacy. For those who believe in LeBron's integrity, these rumors are just that, baseless gossip. But for those who are more cynical, they represent an ongoing enigma, one that questions whether the King's reign has been as clean as it appears. Despite these rumors, LeBron James remains one of the greatest basketball players of all time. His career accomplishments are undeniable, and he has inspired millions with his work both on and off the court. But as with any superstar athlete, the myths and rumors that swirl around him are part of the package. LeBron may have never failed a drug test, but the whispers will continue to follow him as long as the questions remain unanswered. LeBron James, a winner, but at what cost? LeBron James is undeniably a winner. His resume speaks for itself. 4 NBA championships, 4 MVPs, 17 All-Star appearances, and a legendary career that has cemented him as one of the greatest basketball players in history. However, the story of LeBron's career isn't just about his on-court dominance. For many of his former teammates, there's another side to the King's reign, one filled with power struggles, drama, and a control-driven mentality that has rubbed some the wrong way. While LeBron is often praised for his leadership and basketball IQ, behind the scenes, it's a different story. In the pursuit of championships, LeBron's influence over his teams has sometimes crossed a line, leading to friction with coaches, teammates, and management alike. LeBron's time with the Miami Heat is often remembered as the height of the Big Three era, where he teamed up with Dwyane Wade and Chris Bosh to form a powerhouse that dominated the NBA. However, in the early days of that partnership, things weren't always smooth. LeBron, accustomed to being the focal point of his team in Cleveland, found himself in a new environment, where he was one of three stars, each with a strong personality and a desire for control. It's well documented that LeBron clashed with head coach Eric Spoelstra early on. According to reports, LeBron even tried to get Spoelstra fired during the first season, unhappy with the coach's approach and the team's early struggles. The situation became tense as LeBron's influence on the team was growing, and his frustration with Spoelstra boiled over. But Pat Riley, the Heat's president and a key figure in Miami's success, stood firm. He refused to fire Spoelstra, choosing instead to back his head coach and his system. The Heat went on to win 2 championships during LeBron's 4 seasons in Miami, proving that the partnership worked. But it wasn't without its underlying tension. What this episode revealed was a crucial aspect of LeBron's personality. He wasn't just content being the star player. LeBron wanted more. He wanted to be the one to make the decisions. The GM, the coach, and the star all rolled into one. The clashes with Spoelstra were a sign that LeBron's desire for control could sometimes overshadow the needs of the team, despite the success that ultimately followed. After 4 years in Miami, LeBron returned to Cleveland, and it didn't take long for the power struggles to emerge once again. As the team's unquestioned leader, LeBron's influence over the Cavs front office became apparent. He pushed for roster moves that he believed would give the team the best chance to win, but not all of his decisions were well received. One of the most controversial moves was bringing back Dwyane Wade, who was aging and no longer the player he once was. Wade, a former teammate of LeBron's in Miami, was seen as a symbolic addition, a brother to help LeBron win another championship. But in reality, Wade's presence on the team caused more harm than good, as his decline in skill and fitness became evident on the court. The move came at the cost of valuable young players, and the Cavs roster became bloated with aging veterans rather than fresh talent. LeBron also played a major role in pushing out promising young players like Kyrie Irving, who was seen as the Cavs' second star. While their on-court chemistry had its moments, LeBron's dominance often overshadowed Irving's growth. Reports surfaced that Kyrie was frustrated with LeBron's controlling nature and the constant scrutiny that came with playing in his shadow. Eventually, the friction reached a boiling point, and Kyrie demanded a trade, citing a desire to step out of LeBron's shadow and lead a team of his own. The Cavs did win a championship in 2016, ending Cleveland's 52-year title drought, but it was clear that the underlying tensions in the locker room had taken a toll. LeBron's dominance, both on and off the court, may have ultimately cost the Cavs' future success. The team was left struggling with an aging roster and a fractured relationship with its second star, Kyrie Irving. When LeBron signed with the Los Angeles Lakers in 2018, many believed he was joining a franchise that could be the perfect stage for his final years. The Lakers were a storied franchise with a rich history, and LeBron's presence immediately brought credibility and star power to the team. However, his time in LA was once again marked by his influence on the roster and his desire for control. During the 2018 to 2019 season, LeBron and his camp openly pursued a trade for superstar Anthony Davis, who was unhappy in New Orleans. While the Lakers were still trying to build around their young core, Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, and Kyle Kuzma, LeBron's pursuit of Davis sent a clear message. The young players were expendable. LeBron's push for a superstar partner like Davis effectively alienated the Lakers' younger players, creating a fractured locker room dynamic. Morale on the team tanked as players like Ingram and Ball were left feeling like they were on the outside looking in. The team's chemistry took a hit, and the Lakers struggled to find a cohesive identity. The fallout from this power play ultimately resulted in the departure of several young players and the arrival of Davis, as LeBron and the Lakers focused on building a championship-caliber roster. While LeBron did lead the Lakers to an NBA title in 2020, the damage to the team's long-term future was evident. The Lakers had traded away key young assets to bring in Davis, and the team was left with a roster that was aging and reliant on LeBron and Davis to carry them. Once again, LeBron's influence had led to short-term success, but at the cost of long-term stability. LeBron James has achieved greatness on the basketball court, but the cost of that greatness has often been the drama and power struggles that follow him wherever he goes. Whether it's clashing with coaches, pushing for roster moves, or fracturing locker room dynamics, LeBron's need for control has created tension and division within the teams he's led. LeBron has always denied being a power-hungry teammate, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Time and again, wherever he goes, drama follows. And while the results, championships, and MVPs speak for themselves, the legacy of LeBron James may be defined not just by his greatness on the court, but by the way he's manipulated teams and rosters to ensure his success. Is this the cost of greatness, or is it a pattern of manipulation that has left teams worse off once he's gone? The answer may lie somewhere in between, but one thing is clear. LeBron James doesn't just want to be the best player, he wants to control every aspect of the team's destiny. LeBron James, more than an athlete, the brand and the machine. LeBron James isn't just a basketball player, he's a brand, a business, a machine built on carefully curated moments, PR strategy, and absolute narrative control. Over the years, LeBron has become a cultural icon, but his rise to fame has been far from accidental. He has masterfully crafted an image as the ultimate role model, a family man, a philanthropist, and a leader both on and off the court. From his More Than an Athlete campaign to his I Promise School in Akron, LeBron has positioned himself as someone who transcends basketball, someone who is a force for good in the world. However, as many critics argue, these carefully curated moments in the public-facing LeBron are not always as organic as they seem. While many of LeBron's efforts are undoubtedly impactful, like the foundation, his advocacy for education, and his activism, there's no denying the level of calculation behind his public persona. His image isn't just an extension of who he is. It's a strategic construction designed for maximum effect. Every move is meticulously planned, every statement carefully measured. One of the most striking aspects of LeBron's career is how quickly negative stories seem to vanish, while positive ones are given ample attention. Critics have noted how the media surrounding LeBron is consistently polished and streamlined. For example, documentary crews seem to be everywhere during key moments of his life, from his emotional return to Cleveland to his move to the Los Angeles Lakers. LeBron's image is amplified by such productions, such as The Shop and Space Jam 2, where the focus isn't necessarily on raw, unfiltered truth, but rather the promotion of the LeBron brand. Take, for instance, his 2022 tweet about Brittany Griner. "If I were her, I'd question if America has my back." The tweet sparked significant controversy, as it was interpreted by many as questioning the United States' commitment to its own citizens. But within a day, LeBron backtracked, stating that he regretted the wording. His media team quickly went into damage control mode, and the story faded away just as quickly as it had erupted. This wasn't the first time LeBron had been caught in a media firestorm, and after some spin and a bit of clarification, it was quickly swept under the rug. This scenario raises an interesting question. How much of LeBron's public persona is shaped by his army of handlers, PR representatives, and media partners? In interviews, LeBron is rarely pressed on controversial topics. Negative stories about him tend to get buried or minimized, making it incredibly difficult for a negative narrative to gain traction. This level of media control, while beneficial in protecting his brand, also highlights the darker side of his public life, one in which truth can be obscured in favor of crafting a perfect image. LeBron's PR team has been particularly adept at ensuring the narrative remains favorable. For example, when the media focuses on LeBron's community work or his rise from humble beginnings in Akron, Ohio, it serves as a powerful counterbalance to any criticism or scandal. This is a man who, as he frequently reminds us, came from nothing and worked his way to the pinnacle of success. But the public often forgets the carefully orchestrated nature of these appearances, and the fact that his team is always working behind the scenes to protect his image. Being the face of a generation comes with its advantages and challenges. LeBron James has been able to leverage his fame for enormous financial gain. He's built an empire through his partnerships with Nike, endorsements, and media ventures. But this success also comes with a cost. Every move he makes is scrutinized. Every word he says can become headline news, and every slip-up is amplified. The pressure of maintaining his public image can be immense, and as a result, much of LeBron's life is about managing that image, whether through social media posts, speeches, or carefully timed media appearances. LeBron's public appearances are often polished to perfection, never showing the cracks or imperfections that come with being a real human being. This perfectionism is, of course, a reflection of the machine he has built around himself. It's a process of branding, whether it's through his Nike sponsorship, his involvement in Hollywood projects, or his public advocacy on social issues. LeBron has become the prototype of the modern celebrity athlete, someone who knows that every action and every statement is not just about basketball, but about building a lasting legacy. This calculated approach to image building is what separates LeBron from other athletes in his league. While many athletes focus solely on their sport, LeBron has made sure to use his platform to influence culture, business, and society at large. He's positioned himself as an entrepreneur, a social justice advocate, and a philanthropist, all while maintaining his status as one of the best basketball players of all time. But with that level of control and image crafting comes a distinct vulnerability. LeBron's critics have often questioned whether the public has been sold a narrative rather than given an honest portrayal of the man. The argument here isn't about his success or his good deeds. It's about the way in which these moments are sometimes manufactured to align with the LeBron brand. With all the control, narrative manipulation, and PR strategy, the question arises, is LeBron James a true leader, or is he simply a man obsessed with the mythology of his own existence? LeBron's critics argue that, while his philanthropy and activism are commendable, they're often part of a larger image-building effort. Some say that LeBron has become so wrapped up in his own public persona that it detracts from his ability to lead authentically. Rather than a true, unfiltered reflection of his beliefs and actions, LeBron's leadership sometimes appears to be a performance, a well-crafted act to maintain his status as a role model, an icon, and a business mogul. For LeBron, the image has become almost as important as the reality. The scrutiny and control of his narrative ensure that his legacy is shaped the way he wants it to be. But that very control also keeps people from seeing the true complexities of who he is behind the curtain. The question remains, is LeBron James genuinely changing the world for the better? Or is he just another celebrity using his platform to build an empire, all while hiding behind a carefully constructed image of perfection? LeBron James is a once-in-a-generation talent. His achievements are undeniable. His influence, monumental. But perfection? That's a myth. Behind every great story are moments of controversy, conflict, and contradiction. The same is true of the King. This isn't about tearing LeBron down. It's about seeing the full picture, the victories and the blemishes. The truth is, greatness and flaw can exist in the same space. And maybe that's what makes LeBron James so fascinating. He's not just a player, he's a symbol, a reflection of ambition, power, and the cost of both. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the dark past of LeBron James, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for more deep dives into the legends of sports, and the secrets behind the spotlight.